Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Salesforce Ben webinar. I'm Simon, your host for today's session, and we'll be exploring lead management and assignment in Salesforce. So as you get settled in, I'd love to know, where are you tuning in from today? It's always exciting to see how global our audience is. I'm currently in London, and it's a little bit grey down here, as is characteristic for London, I feel. But yeah, so as I'm sure you all know, the pressure to drive growth and nurture customer relationships is continually intensifying, meaning that effective lead management has never been more crucial. Today, we're teaming up with Plauti to explore the complexities of lead management and assignment, and we'll be covering the common obstacles that organizations face when it comes to lead management, Salesforce native routing capabilities and limits, and also alternative tools that can enhance your strategy. So whether you're looking to refine your current approach or implement new solutions, this session is packed with insights that will help you elevate your lead management strategy. I'm thrilled to introduce you to Ed Ralph, who will be our speaker for today. As always, I'll pop back for the Q&A, but for now, I'll hand over to you, Ed.
Thank you very much. Hello, everybody, and thank you for attending this webinar. So, in terms of what I have done in the past, I've been a Salesforce ISV for about the last 5 years, working in the lead assignment and routing space. And before that, I've been a CIO, a CMO, COO, have implemented Salesforce as a customer in 2 of those organizations. So I've understood life on both sides of the fence as both a customer and a vendor of Salesforce solutions. So hopefully today I'll be able to give you a bit of insight or a bit of my experience in lead management. Actually, not just lead management, it could be cases, it could be any other custom object, how it's typically done, and then have a look at some of the out-of-the-box functionality versus moving on to perhaps using dedicated apps to achieve these things. So the first part of the session, we'll talk about those things, focusing on the out-of-the-box features and functionality, and then we'll spend maybe 10 minutes looking at Plauti's Super Round Robin lead assignment tool, and then finishing off with a bit on revenue orchestration, a bit of fancy terminology to finish off with. So I'll dive into the first slide, where we talk. Well, I want to talk really, take a step back and look at the technology as a sort of a platform. So Salesforce, as you're fully aware, is a generic business platform, which means that out of the box, it's not that useful. You've got to start to customize it, to model your business processes, to get it to do everything that you need to do. And there's only so far you can go with the out of the box functionality before you're starting to create flows or even add Apex functionality, install managed packages from the App Exchange, that kind of thing. And depending on your role, often your job is to understand what's available in the ecosystem and understand your business processes and start to assemble these and put them together, and even educate your business leadership. I've been certainly in situations where Salesforce has been implemented, and then when we've said to the leadership, well, we need to install or implement this part or buy this managed package, they've been incredulous and say, oh, surely Salesforce can do that. But as you know, as I said, it's a generic platform, and it's meant to be built upon, and it's meant to be customized. And I like to think about Salesforce orgs in this sort of way, as a continuum, where at the beginning of a Salesforce org's life, I like to call that a vanilla Salesforce. So vanilla Salesforce is straight, a newly spun up instance, very little or no customization. So new orgs will often look like this. They'll be modeling very simple business processes. They probably haven't really got any custom Apex or anything in. And then as an org matures and time goes on, they maybe hire Salesforce administrators and developers. They introduce flows, process builder, Apex, and the org becomes more mature and start to implement maybe dedicated solutions as well. So by the time an org has implemented these sorts of things, they're a bit more mature. The org is modeling more complex business processes, and you've got a mixture of dedicated apps from the App Exchange, you've got flows, you've got Apex, and sometimes this is great, and other times it's turned into a big monstrosity where it's a job to make sure that everything is working as we'd expect. And what I'd like to do during this is to give you some hints as to how to keep your org nice and clean whilst evolving your Salesforce org to a mature but robust state. So in terms of routing itself and assignments, let's just do a very brief overview of the out-of-the-box approaches. Now, pretty much all Salesforce orgs are going to be doing one of these things. The first of which, okay, it's not even out of the box; it's nowhere near the box. If you're manually assigning leads and cases and things like that, then that's often where a lot of orgs start. And I've even seen larger orgs still doing manual assignment. And often, you have a member of staff, an admin or somebody that is tasked a few hours a day to look at all the leads that have come in overnight, and then divvy those up and send those off to the appropriate sales reps or agents. And often they will develop processes of their own. They'll have a spreadsheet, they'll be recording who's received what and making sure that those have been distributed out equitably. But there are always issues with that. And you implement something like Salesforce, you don't expect someone to be manually assigning the leads that come in. Then as an org matures a bit more, they start to bring in things like lead assignment rules and using queues, and that way we can start to automate when a lead comes in, automatically segmenting those leads and sending them off to the right specific user, or into a queue for reps to pick up. And related to that, a lot of orgs will have web to lead forms on their websites collecting leads, and those will funnel into queues, and again waiting for the sales development reps to pick those out of queues. Now, when those first three solutions start to not provide functionality that they need, then often let's talk about Omni first. So Omni for Service Cloud, so that's a fairly advanced part of out-of-the-box Salesforce functionality, which is specifically or really designed for Service Cloud and for case management. And that's something that does do routing and assignment, but it does it in a slightly different way to what you'd expect. It does things like load balancing based on the number of tabs someone's got open and things like that. And then in terms of starting to customize those processes, and when web to lead into queues and lead assignment rules don't quite stack up, then you'll find that some orgs start to build custom solutions themselves using Flow and or Apex and maybe lead assignment rules. And that is perfectly fine for some orgs that generally have fairly simple processes. So those are the main routing and assignment methods that I come across when talking to orgs and customers relating to routing and assignment. And what I would like to do is just go through those in a bit more detail and try to look at, if you're using one of these methods, what the best way is of thinking about whether it's currently fit for purpose or not. So the manual assignment route now is probably absolutely fine if your volume is low. So I'm talking maybe a few records per day. As soon as you start getting into dozens and dozens of records per day, it starts to become a much bigger job, and it becomes more error prone and isn't at all effective. You start to get issues around the person that is doing the assignment knowing everything about how to do it. When they go on vacation, then it becomes difficult to hand that off to somebody else, and the urgency around responding to those leads and cases is completely dependent on that member of staff actually getting around to doing the assignment. So it's okay, manual assignment, if you've got no regular or ongoing issues as a result of doing that. And obviously, you have to have the resources to be able to do this. And this is something that often, like I said before, is something that fairly new orgs will do straight away, because the out-of-the-box Salesforce doesn't really help you do this out of the box. So you've got to get the leads into the hands of the right people. So start off doing it manually. And then soon people will discover the lead assignment rules or case assignment rules. And again, this is fine, but what I would say is it's only fine really when you have relatively few rules. So if you've got more than 20 or 30 rules, it starts to get tricky. It starts to get hard to manage. It's also okay if the records that are getting assigned are being assigned to just one specific individual or into one queue. So if you have a bunch of records coming in and you want them to be assigned to a team, then lead assignment rules don't do this very well. You have to go into a queue, and then you have a bunch of issues around queue usage, which I'll go into in a minute. The other thing as well is that the lead assignment rules, as you probably know, are managed in the back end of Salesforce, and often it will require IT or the Salesforce administrator to go in and change the lead assignment rules if they do need changing. So the other last thing as well is that obviously this only works for leads and cases. So custom objects and other standard objects, you're going to not be able to do this approach. And queues I mentioned as well. So often these are where leads go when they've come through a web to lead process. And again, these work fine for simple use cases where there's fairly low urgency. And I say low urgency because often I've seen leads languishing in queues. And also you've got to trust your reps not to cherry pick the best leads from the queue and leave the sort of mediocre leads sitting in the queue not being responded to. And they're also okay if you don't need more equitable means of distribution like round robin or load balancing. And you don't have to worry about things like rep availability and working hours, things like that. And then omnichannel, as I said before, that's great if you're using Service Cloud for assigning cases, but it is a curious system, and it's quite tricky it's tricky to set up well. And there's also an element of cherry picking as well, where cases can sit there while agents decide whether they want to pick it up or not. So again, that's up to your business sort of strategy and process as to whether you want that kind of behavior to happen. Also, there might be some issues with the way that it lets you manage holiday and part-time hours and things like that. So there are some good things about it and some not so good things. The good thing about omnichannel is that it does play quite nicely with other sort of more dedicated lead assignment, case assignment solutions as well. Now, those things are sort of out of the box vanilla Salesforce features, as is Flow. Obviously, with Flow, you've got to go in and devise the process yourself, and those can work again if the complexity is fairly low. And if changes aren't required on a regular basis, because obviously you've got a Salesforce administrator that's having to make these changes, and you don't need your regular users, maybe a sales supervisor or RevOps manager, to make changes in there. And it's absolutely essential that these solutions are well documented so that if another admin has to work on them, it's easy to pick up. When an org starts to get more mature and you've got hundreds of flows, often the job that these flows do just start to become magic, and people don't really know how things are happening, and it can be quite tricky to understand what's happening under the hood. And the same goes for Apex solutions. These again are great for fairly minimal complexity processes. But again, you're relying on developers as well, so the changes can take time, and you need to have good development processes in place to make this happen. And then this I've labelled this little section as the danger zone. So when orgs start to discover Apex and flows, it's really important that they have good development processes in place, because this is when orgs can start to go out of control. If the business asks for lots of different solutions and these are rushed out, it can very quickly cause issues. So those are obviously the methods that people are using to do lead case assignment, and when they're not already using a dedicated tool. And at the beginning, I was talking about this continuum from vanilla to a more mature org, and for most organizations that want to be moving towards the sort of state-of-the-art processes, then and you want to be doing implementing processes which give you revenue enhancing capability, so things like service level agreements, things like fine-tuning of distribution and proper round robin, capping lead assignments and weighting lead assignments, all these things that you can do to improve conversion rates by making sure that the right people are getting the right records at the right time, promptly enough. And also, if you want things like reporting and metrics and an audit trail of why records have been assigned and to whom they've been assigned. And then finally, if you want a robust solution that experts in their field supports and improves, then dedicated solutions on the App Exchange are likely to be where you're looking. But before diving into those dedicated solutions, I do want to give you a feel for what is still possible with things like lead assignment rules and flow. So firstly, let's have a look at basic round robin with lead assignment rules. So this is so before I said about lead assignment rules only being really fit for purpose when it's a single user that you're assigning to or a queue. Now you can do a little bit of customization in order to get a very basic round robin going using lead assignment rules. So firstly, what we do, we create an auto number custom field on our lead object. And then on the same lead object, we create a number formula field, which takes advantage of the mod function or the mod operator. And what the mod operator does is it takes your auto number field. So in that little table, the auto number in the left-hand column. So as new records are created, the auto number increments by 1. And what the formula will do is basically does a division. So the first number in that mod argument is the auto number, and the second number is the number of reps or the number of users that you're going to round robin by. So in this example, I've got 4. So if I've got 4 reps, I'll do it like this. And the way the mod formula works is that it will do with whole numbers. On the first row, it'll go 1 divided by 4, and the output is the remainder. So because you can't divide 1 divided by 4 and end up with a whole number, it just outputs 1. And then the same, and then it follows through. So 2, 3, and then when you get to 4 divided by 4, that goes to 0, and then so on and so forth. So what you end up with is an output which cycles through 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, 3, 0, and so forth. And just to make it a little bit more user friendly, if you add 1, then we just get 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So with that formula field, we can just use that and refer to that in our lead assignment rule. So as follows, we can create these rule entries where we're looking at that, the output of that formula field. And when it equals 1, you assign it to the first member of the team. When it equals 2, the second member of the team, and so on and so forth. So what this lets us do is, if we do have a small team of people, we can do a rudimentary round robin for every record that comes in. It will just get moved on to the next person in that round robin team, and it will just cycle through those. And this is great the issues you can probably start to imagine with this is that if one of these guys has to go, is on vacation or something, then an administrator has to come in and change the lead assignment rule. And if the number of people in the team changes, then we have to go in and edit this as well. And also, if you want to start segmenting leads, so let's say you've got East Coast leads going to team A and West Coast leads going to team B, then it's then beyond the capabilities of this kind of basic round robin, because you cannot really do that segmentation. But if you've got a very small team and you want something quick and dirty, then this works really well. And then in a similar thing, so round robin, let's go back to that. Round robin is just going to go one by one around each member of the team, and it doesn't regard how much load they're under. A load balancing approach is more about assigning your lead to the person with the smallest or the fewest leads, the one with the lowest load. And you can do that with flow. Here I've just got a conceptual flow here where what you would do is first query the potential owners from your user's object. You'll query the existing leads that they own, and then you loop over those potential owners, and for each of those potential owners, you count up how many leads they currently own, and then at the end of it, you'll work out who's got the fewest leads, and then you will assign that particular new lead to that person that had the fewest leads. And obviously, you can include various criteria in this whole process as well. And if you wanted to get fancy, you could do things like only querying potential owners when they're in the office, for example. So that's one way. That's a pointer really as to how you might be able to do load balancing using flows. But again, the issues that I pointed out before with using flows for something like this apply to this as well. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about very briefly is what kinds of things, as you're developing an org from your vanilla Salesforce org to a more mature org, and these are really mostly things that I've come across or I've experienced in my time and wish someone had told me right at the beginning. So let's dive into those. So if I only did one thing, I think this is it. So in other sort of areas of software development, there's always change management systems where you document changes and record business processes. In Salesforce, that's not something that happens out of the box. You have to do this on top. And if there's only one thing I would do, that's this. I've come across so many orgs where I've been asked to go in and understand how they do round robin and then change it. And then nobody's known how to do it. And it's become a huge job. So having a system for documenting those changes and recording the business processes is key. I'd also make it a person's responsibility to decide whether a certain requirement has to be fulfilled by Flow and Apex, and have quite stringent rules around whether to actually do customization or not. And then the other side of the coin is when a Flow or process build or Apex is no longer used, just get rid of it, completely get rid of it. In a more mature org, if you've got years worth of old flows and old Apex hanging around, that can really mess things up. And also in a similar vein, when flows get too big, then you'll know about it. Things will start breaking. Things will start getting really hard to change and manage. So this is where you want to consider alternative ways of achieving these goals. And then finally, have a technical person internally, if you possibly can, who's responsible for these things and responsible for your org. If you have to use third-party development agencies to do this kind of work, don't let them loose on your org without supervision from a technical person internally, if at all possible. Because if you don't do these things, I reckon in about 5 or so years, sometimes sooner than that, your org becomes a bit of a monster, and you'll be forced to do a huge migration project to a new org, hopefully doing things the correct way, but it will cost lots of money and cost lots of resource, and obviously cause interruption as well. So these are just a few tips that I wish I'd understood when I started developing Salesforce orgs. When I looked at this slide, so yeah, I was going to talk about out-of-the-box functionality, so the things I've been talking about versus dedicated solutions. I had to think and then thought, actually, it's not that. It's not out-of-the-box versus dedicated solutions. It's more the case that everybody starts with the out-of-the-box solutions and then gradually evolves towards the dedicated solutions. So it's kind of a matter of time before, as your processes get more complex and your business requirements get more needy, then it is just a matter of time before you really have to start considering dedicated solutions for solving your challenges. So let's have a look at a dedicated solution. So Super Round Robin. So this is an app that does all of the things that we talked about before in terms of lead management, case management, and a few other bits on top as well. And if I just had to think of a few things that I could say that differentiates a dedicated app and this dedicated app from other things, it's these things. So better control. So you can take better charge of your routing and assignment needs within the business. You get better visibility, so reporting on those assignments and audit trail on assignments, and then better results as well. So I'm talking about bottom line results. So by improving the speed to lead contact, by improving getting leads to the right person at the right time, and creating actionable data that improves conversion rates, you're going to get better results. So let's have a look conceptually at how Super Round Robin works. So this all happens in the front end of Salesforce, so you don't have to go into the setup end of Salesforce. The first thing we do is we set the operational mode. So we tell it to either do round robin or load balance. And then we say, okay, I want you to assign the owner ID field on opportunity, that's in this case, opportunity object or whatever object you want to do. And then we set up some rules if we want to segment those records so that some of those records go to team A and other records go to team B. We create these match rules that are probably similar to conditions and rules you've created before in flows and things like that. And then finally, you set the users that are going to be given those records that match those rules. And we can have a look at those different things in a little bit more detail. The nice thing about the way that we do this is the configuration is mostly done on just one screen, so it's relatively intuitive. You go through creating those things on the single team on the one screen, and as the app is on the front end of Salesforce, you can give permission to regular users, i.e. people that aren't system administrators, to go in and manage rules and create these groups, take assignees in and out of these round robin teams. So this might be sales supervisors, RevOps managers, operations managers, that kind of thing. People that typically might not want to go into the setup end of Salesforce, but they're perfectly happy to go into here and take assignees in and out, that kind of thing. Through this interface, we can route and assign any object, not just leads and opportunities and cases. We can do any object, and also we can create rules based on any field on that object, but also on parent object fields as well. So in this example, we can see that it's an opportunity being routed, but we're also looking at the annual revenue of the parent account for the opportunity. So in this instance, if the annual revenue of the parent account is greater than 100,000, then that will match this match group. We can also assign not just the owner. If you have custom user lookup fields, maybe it's a sales development rep or a technical specialist or a documentation specialist. People like to assign different people to different roles for different objects. So you can assign those as well as the owner. And it's not just real time. So typically most people will assign their records in real time. So as they come in, they'll get assigned, but you can have it to be delayed as well. So you can use automation further down the line to trigger assignment of a record. Rep availability is something that is a key requirement as an organization matures. So here we've got a view of the assignees in our opportunity match group. And by looking down, you can see a few things. So you can see that there's a toggle, which we can easily use to easily toggle people in and out of the team. You can quickly see what their status is right now. So we've got things like they're assignable, or if they are out of hours or out of office. Or at the bottom, you can see Patrick, his calendar is busy. So he's temporarily taken out of the round robin because he's got a busy meeting or something. And then on the right-hand side, you can see that most people have been set to receive their leads 24/7, but Amy there doesn't seem to work on Tuesdays or Wednesdays, but is getting leads Monday, Thursday, Friday. So it also gives you the ability to set things like part-time hours and shift hours and things like that. You also have control over assignments in terms of capping as well as weighting. So we can fiddle around with the distribution ratio. So if you don't want a perfectly equitable distribution, but you want it weighted towards maybe your more senior reps or more your more highly performing reps, you might tweak the distribution ratio. And there's also the ability to cap as well. So if you've got somebody you don't want them to have, so they've got me at the bottom there, capped to 3 records. You don't want me to get more than 3 records. So that's an option as well. And then let's have a look at visibility. So like I said before, every time a lead is assigned, there is an audit trail. So you get a record that shows what record was assigned, to whom it was assigned, what match group assigned it, and what time it was, and a little note to say what's happened there. So this is a good place to come if reps don't understand why something's happened. It's quite good to come in here and diagnose what's going on. The other thing as well is that because all of the functionality or the configuration and the app is regular Salesforce objects, we can create Salesforce reports and dashboards, so we can look at assignment metrics and put those together into a dashboard so that you've got full visibility on how those leads or cases or whatever object is being distributed across the team. And then finally, results. I talked about results and how maybe you can drive rep behavior with actionable data. So these next few charts show data that comes out of using the SLA or service level agreement feature. And what this does is measure the amount of time between assignment and the first contact. So here we can see that Delia is taking on average 12 minutes to meet her SLAs, whereas the other guys are 1 or 2 minutes. So that's an interesting way of spotting how your team is performing in terms of first contact. And then we can slice and dice this in different ways. So this next chart looks at the whole East Coast team versus the West Coast team. And at the beginning of the chart, you can see before we started measuring this metric, they were taking 12 to 15 minutes to meet their SLAs. But as soon as you start to measure and publish the leaderboards and the amount of time they're taking, it drives their behavior to be faster and faster to reach out to their leads, such that in a few weeks we're down to under 3 minutes to meet SLA. So that's an example of how you might drive rep behavior using data coming out of a dedicated tool like this. And then here we're looking as well at, we can see who might have missed their SLAs, and we can also create leaderboards as well. So all these things can be put on a dashboard for your RevOps managers and sales managers to use to help manage and help improve conversion rates across the team. So this this slide here, we're talking about driving rep behavior with actionable data, and we're starting to get towards what I call state-of-the-art sort of lead management and revenue enhancing capabilities. And it's when you start to bring apps like this together with other best-in-class apps that start to do things like data validation, they do things like data deduplication, enrichment. As soon as you start to assemble these apps together in a strategic way to improve your revenue, improve the bottom line, we start getting into this thing we call revenue orchestration. So you'll start to hear this term being used more and more. It's really just a way of describing how, instead of just bringing in individual point tools to do a certain job, we're starting to think about the whole process from end to end in terms of how data is coming into your organization, how we can make sure that it's clean and validated and deduplicated and then routed to the right person at the right time, and then getting data out of it that's actionable. We're doing all of that in a strategic way in order to maximize the bottom line and maximize conversion rates, maximize revenue. So we're calling this revenue orchestration, and it's something that within the Plauti app set, we're able to provide. I'm sure the guys at Plauti will be happy to talk to you about those things if you're interested in any of that. So we're broadly at the end of the presentation now. So I'm hoping that some of you may have questions or not. So I think we're just going to dive straight into the Q&A now. Yeah.
Amazing. Thanks, Ed. So yeah, if you've got any questions for Ed, then do pop them in the comments and we'll get around to them. We had a few come in. So the first one is, in our business, the leads are assigned to reps that do an initial call. And then if it is worth following up, it gets forwarded to a more senior sales rep. How would you deal with that scenario?
Okay, so yeah, so this is a fairly common use case in fairly mature sales teams that have sort of multi-stage processes. So you've got so in this example, you've got calls or leads coming in. They'll go to an initial team. So with using the Super Round Robin app as an example, that app would first have a match group that will segment those leads, assign those to the initial team that's qualifying those leads, and then the qualifying team, they would let's say they update the status of the record once they've qualified the record. Then we'll have automation that spots that status change, and then that will trigger Super Round Robin again. And then this time it will hit a different match group because it's a qualified lead, and it would then be routed to, let's say, a senior team of sales reps who would then immediately get those qualified leads for them to work on. So you would fully automate that multi-stage process using Super Round Robin.
Amazing, thank you. Another question here. Can you elaborate on the service level agreement feature?
Yeah, sure. So service level agreement feature is another thing. So a lot of, again, more mature sales processes will want is when they'll be very keen to make sure that leads that come in are contacted as quickly as possible. So often, the conversion rate depends on the lead being contacted very quickly, often within minutes. And if it's not been contacted within, let's say, 10 minutes or 20 minutes, then the conversion rate will typically go down. So the service level agreement is a feature in Super Round Robin whereby you determine how long you want that service level agreement to be. So in, let's say, 10 minutes, and you specify the conditions which would cause that SLA to be met. So the SLA might be met when, I don't know, let's say the status of the lead changes or a field is updated in the lead. And then when that condition is met and this SLA is met, then that's fine, everything's good, the SLA is met, and we record that length of time it took for that SLA to be met. If the 10 minutes passes and the SLA has not been met, then the SLA is being deemed to be missed, and that's what's reported on in those graphs that I showed before. And you have the option as well to then, if an SLA is missed, you have the option to have that reassigned to the next person. So it might have been missed because that person had gone out of the office for an hour. So then that lead isn't wasted, because then it gets reassigned to the next person in the queue and then hopefully picked up by the next person.
Amazing, thank you. We've got another one here. How would you handle this situation? Leads, marketing qualified lead comes into the group, lead qualifiers creates sales qualified leads,
Yeah,
and
I think
then
that's the first one that I answered, right?
Oh, is it?
Coming to a group. I think that sounds very similar to the first one that I answered around leads coming in, going into the first group, and then those qualifiers, I don't know, maybe they phone up or they do something to qualify that lead, and then once it's qualified, it then needs to go off to account reps. So again, you'd have some automation that picked up the fact that the lead had been qualified, and then Super Round Robin would reroute that to the appropriate account reps according to the rules that are in place for the business rules that you'd want to do the routing.
Great, thank you. Any other questions for Ed? Fab. If there are no more questions, then I'm happy to wrap up the session if you are.
Yeah, no, awesome. Yeah, no, thanks
Perfect.
everybody for listening in.
Well, thank you for taking the time to speak to us today. And thank you, everyone in the audience, as well, for tuning in. Any last thoughts you'd like to share with the audience?
Only if you're still around and you're still listening, thank you for putting up with me so long. If you've got any questions that you think of, once this webinar's over, do feel free to reach out to me, reach out to Plauti, and we can help you with whatever issues or challenges you might have in your org around routing or deduplication, data management, any of those things. We'd love to help.
Amazing. Perfect. Thanks, everyone. That's it for today. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. Bye.
Bye-bye.